All right, guys, me being from Alabama, there's two things you can do in the wintertime. You can either deer hunt or you can go bass fishing. I like bass fishing and I like deer hunting too, but wintertime is some of the best fishing you can have down south. Even though it's kind of cold outside, there's still ways to catch them, and it's oftentimes your highest chances of catching the biggest fish in the lake. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the 3 ways that I attack those wintertime fish in the south where I live at. Number 1 is going to be a jerkbait, especially when that water gets in the mid to low 50s, anything from, again, mid 50s and down. I'm going to be reaching for a jerkbait. This is a really good color in the wintertime to target all 3 species, really, smallmouth, largemouth, and spotted bass. Just a really good all-around color. Really good unless you get in some really stained water, but any really dirty water, you're going to want to try and get a more solid color. But this goes from clear water to a little bit of stain. From a setup standpoint with the jerkbait, I like the 710 Invoker Pro medium. It's a regular action. I really like this rod. It's got a lot of tip, but it's got some backbone once you get about halfway down the rod, and I kind of like that. It loads up good, but once you get to that certain point, it kind of drives those hooks home. Especially in the wintertime, those fish's mouth can be really, really hard, and you're not going to get a lot of good hook penetration if you have too soft of a rod. Line size kind of depends on how deep you want the bait to run, anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12. Normally don't go above 12. Normally the happy medium is 10. That's kind of what I go with. It's what I have rigged up here. The arc gravity reel, I have it on a 7-to-1. I like a 7-to-1 over a 8 just because I feel like with an 8 sometimes I'll catch myself bringing in more slack line than I need to, and you're actually moving the jerkbait more than you actually need to. You need to move it with your rod only on slack line, not your reel. So with the 7-to-1, it kind of keeps me from doing that. It still keeps me at a good pace, but I feel like the 8 can kind of hurry you up a little bit. So that's why I choose the 7-to-1. Just one of my favorite setups with the jerkbait. Number 2 is going to be a jig. Most of the time a finesse style jig in the wintertime. This particular jig is a 1/2 ounce. I have a zoom, a crawl trailer on it. Just green pumpkins, a really good color to go with. Just throwing it around bluff walls, big rocks, stuff like that. Isolated laydowns is a good, on channel swing, stuff like that is a good place to target those wintertime fish. Setup with this, I have it on a 7.3 medium heavy arc reinforcer. I like a little bit longer rod with the 7.3. You get a little bit of more casting distance, but with the medium heavy, you've got a little tip. So when you're dragging that jig and one picks it up, a real soft bite in the wintertime, you're not going to pull it out of his mouth like you would with a heavy. You've got a little sensitivity with the reinforcer, especially on those cold mornings when you can't really feel anything, including your hands. Reel wise, it's the same as the jerkbait reel. It's a 7-to-1. The arc gravity, just a really good all-around gear ratio. Line size on this is going to depend. Most of the time I'm on 18, 16 to 18 sunline shooter. If I'm around some real gnarly stuff, I'll bump it up to 20, but normally that 18 pound is a really good range to stick with. It's real manageable, it's not too stiff, and you can make good cast, and the bait kind of works like it's supposed to with that pound test. Number 3 is going to be a real small crankbait. This is the Z Alpha MS8. The color wise kind of depends on your water clarity and what time of year. Early winter with water temps 55, you can still get away with a shad pattern, natural pattern, kind of like we have here. Kind of mimics a crawl too, but more of a shad deal on that. As you get into dead winter, early spring, that's when I'm going to switch to my crawl colors. The real dark crawls, the brown crawls with some orange in there. But this is a really good bait to throw in the wintertime because a lot of the shad are small, coming from that where they were, the fall deal. This bait's going to run with, I've got it on 10-pound line here. It's going to run in that 10 to 12 foot range. Bump the line up a little bit, it can run a little bit shallower for you. Reel wise, I like it on a 6:4-to-1 gear ratio, the arc gravity. I like to, sometimes I'll even go to a 5:4-to-1 if it's really, really cold, because it makes me want to slow, or it makes me have to slow down. Even though I'm going to be reeling real fast and make myself think that I'm not going fast, I'm going slow with that slower gear ratio. And the colder the water, the slower you're going to want to be going. Reel wise, this is the Invoker Pro. It's a 7.2 medium regular action. This is the rod I'm going to throw a lot of my crankbaits on until I get into those bigger ones. But any bait this size, the CT8 and the Alpha Z 1.5, I'm going to be using this rod. It's just a really good crankbait rod. It's been really good to me over the years. Line size, just one more, going back to that, depends on, I got it on 10. If you want to run a little deeper, go I would probably stay with 10. I probably wouldn't go to 8, but if you wanted it to run shallower, you could probably bump it up to 12 or 14 and get away with it for sure. Those are my 3 wintertime setups in the South. They've been really good to me over the years. Again, get out there if it's not too cold and you can handle it and you've got the right clothes, you have a chance to catch the fish of a lifetime.